Yeah, so the Christ bloodlines, and these are all the different bloodlines, not just oh, Yeshua ben Joseph. The Christ bloodlines, they were there. So, this is a long time ago, since the fall, since Earth fell into third density. They these high beings came in and created an ascended bloodline. They were also the royal those were like the original true royal families, and they didn't rule over people, that these were like the loving parents, and the loving families, and so many tribes. Yes, so many tribes, they trace themselves back to one of these beings. Yes, to an ascended being. And then there are also tribes that trace themselves back to star beings. Yes, well, that's the same thing, really. Yes. hmm And then there are the visitors also. But the visitors to the star people, they were the ones that came to Earth who were able to densify themselves. The visitors were not necessarily the ones that were incarnated. No, no. The incarnated ones were not the visitors. And the visitors who who came down in density only for a short period of time, and only to the people that they shared DNA with. Yeah, so their offspring. And they brought them gifts just like you would, to your great grandchildren. And you see, oh, look, they're having a difficult time because Earth fell so, fell so low in consciousness, and they're ready to handle this gift that we're giving them to help them have an easier life, but in a good way, help them create more beauty, really, and have a and not have to unnecessarily suffer. So they were given, or have unnecessary hardship. They were given technology, for example, some kind of technology. Yeah. So an earth seed soul at the end of its an earth seed soul in a human body at the end of its cycle, where it experienced itself in a royal human human body. And the royal human body is exactly the body that the templates are coming online now for the whole earth. Like the whole earth is getting nobilized, you know. The minerals are becoming noble because we're all going through this shift with our bodies. Not all keep their bodies, but those are then the souls that are not that didn't come to traverse um, these dimensions. They came for the tail end, but they still have some business. They still have work to do. They still have experience to experience within the template of the 3D human being, or not human, within the 3D template, humanoid template. Humanoid is like all the humanoid forms on all the different planets that would that are available at 3D and that are accessible by that soul. And yes, there is help because one way or another that is done. If the soul cannot do it on its own, reach another planet, with 3D, then there is a type of a shuttle service. Yeah. Oh, my water. Uh, and then And then at some point that Earth soul, yes, exactly, is ready to leave Earth. And that Earth soul is, of course, merged with the galactic soul, and it's when they're both ready, to leave, or when the galactic soul, if the galactic soul should leave its body for whatever reason. This is not something that now makes sense, but just for the structure of it, they could also go into then these souls that merged in that human body, could they then again split? Yeah, but they take a part of each other. It's like they wove together, so they're never going to be like in that sense split. It's like the two templates are now interwoven. But that happens every time that a galactic soul merges with an earth soul, because just as the earth soul gets imprinted with the code of the galactic soul, it's vice versa, of course. Yes. And this is also the merge and the marriage, so to speak, from heaven and earth, what they say, heaven and earth. And these are also just like the two DNA, the heritage, the heirloom DNA that we get male from mother father, you know, mother father, that's the body, and that's the body's DNA, so that's the earth soul. That's what makes up the earth soul. And then the galactic soul, oh, okay, so that's female male too. And then the galactic soul and the earth soul both again have these two principles. Earth would be female, galactic would be like the sky, air would be male. And there again, these two principles merge. It's always that which creates any kind of movement, is the male-female principle merging and having this polarity at the same time. So they have like an individuality, which is a uniqueness unto themselves, even though they are one. They just, the energy current, they just flow in the opposite direction. Yeah. That's the only thing that is the difference. It's like in, out, up, down, up to down or down to up, in to out or out to in. And you see it's one flow. It's always a cycle. It's always not a cycle. It's always a spiral. Yeah. And one spiral around is one cycle. But you see, at the end of a cycle, we never come exactly in the same point that we started out. Even when we exit, or we dissolve the body, the densest body that we're in, we always dissolve it, how should I say this, through the same portal that it came from. Okay, so what does that mean? In the great cycle, it means that even though a soul journeys, it came out of, what did it come out of? A sun. Because as we said with the planets, the first planet came out from a sun. There was a little sun, but these are like really high vibrating planets, right? Like at that level vibrating planets. And then the smaller one always densified, densified, densified. And it brought forth out of its core the souls into the different templates. And the founder races are the ones that they make the templates. It's a big, that's why they're called races. It's a big team. And they're master geneticists, but they don't, not in a petri dish like this. It's with sound. It's done with sound. So it's like music almost. It does sound like music on that level. It's beautiful music. Yes, 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 yes. You take the potential of that DNA, and then it is, of course, through all that has already been lived, through all the templates before, it has been imprinted. And then you play, those are the sounds, those are the codes that they play with, that they mix together and exactly put into what place in the template where it should do what. Like heart system, blood system, bones. We'll take DNA from this royal line, from this royal line, And yeah, of the whole natural kingdom. Yes. And these are also rays. And that this is what is actually coming in. The funny wise, I'm just getting this. These are the rays. These are these light waves that are coming in, and this is what the founder races, how they influence the DNA, um, creating a paradigm framework for consciousness, creating the templates. The geometry. Yes, the geometry, which by the incoming through the core of the sun, through that 0 point, that's where it's created. But if it's a portal, it's the incoming consciousness, light sparks, light fractals, souls. But they're not embodied yet. They don't have templates yet. Right. They fractalize into the geometrical code of the respective templates. That the founder races built these templates and these geometries, which by, the like, let's say the photons on that level, on the photonic level, which is the level of the atoms, right? How they string, it's how they flow through the templates of the geometrical formations, is how they string. Yes, 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 exactly. How they string. And then they build the templates. And then the soul comes in and it has and then that's how it forms. That's how it forms. And then it densifies. And at some point of densification, it takes, well, actually, once it's in form, it's the male female form that then creates, where then that string of DNA gets to develop itself, continue. Right. Okay, let's leave it at that. So the royal bloodline templates, they provided possibility, opportunity, um, for very high frequential souls that were also not caught in the reincarnation cycle, to, through their higher vibrating bodies, through that DNA. And they, of course, they had to have a certain, and that those were those groups, like the Essenes in the case of Yeshua, that were holding that DNA open, so it wouldn't shut down. And therefore, beings from much higher dimensions that would be able to be a match to that ascended DNA that was created with the ascension of the, whenever that happened in the forefathers, yeah. And then you have to keep that, of course, you have to stay on that level of frequency, and you have to keep that DNA open. And then you can bring in these high frequential beings, and those were the original royal T's and royal bloodlines, and they came, but of course they were then taken over when the planet went deeper into darkness and forgetting and falling asleep and into suffering and trauma. Therefore, because it's already the first trauma is when you feel disconnected from God, disconnected from your soul. When you get that, when you forget who you are, that alone, can cause like so much fear and distortion, and cause the mind from peak performing That's where it begins. Yes, with that split is where it begins. Yes. Um. So the forgot the lost ones, they're not really lost, but the dark ones were taking over. The denser embodiers of soul were taking over. And at some point, that's what they tried to do. They always tried to kill the royal bloodlines. And that now what I'm also getting is that the original tribes, they were trying to keep that was also a way of, not maybe not all of them, I don't know, but I'm getting that the at some point all the original tribes, they were coming from a royal bloodline, right? An ascended bloodline. Very old though. Yes, very old. Again, we have like, how old is Earth? We're in fifth Earth now. So, how many times has she dipped and went back up? Or is it the first time? But still, we're looking at a way older Earth than we can even imagine. Yeah. And that's what I got recently, was that all of a sudden I got how at some point it's going to open up and we're going to see how deep this actually goes, this rabbit hole, or the bottom of the barrel, where, like, how old is this Earth and how much history do we actually have? you know yeah, and then cataclysms and starting over again. Yeah, and so it was for the royal bloodlines to hold this higher frequency within times of great density, to keep the flame alive, so to speak, to keep the consciousness awake, who we really are, but in a sense of not the body, but our soul. Because our soul body is that fractal body that through the whole entire template of the humanoid template is connected. That means through the whole galaxy and all other galaxies and all other species, because the templates, those layers that I was talking about before, what builds upon the next, they also are connected. And I got how that was, but I'm not going to go into that now. And well, through the ascension, for example, the ascension of, let's say, that whale consciousness into its first humanoid form, um, even though it may even be possible to take a whale's body after you've gone through the humanoid template. Maybe it's even higher than that. I don't know actually at this point, but what I'm getting is animal. Still, there's a difference between a humanoid consciousness template and an animal consciousness template. And even though the whales are, and I remembered I had a lucid dream where I was in that consciousness of whale and body of whale and dolphin. And so I remember what that's like. It's definitely not human, but it is multidimensional, and they have like the total connectedness. I don't know total, but like huge connectedness into their soul body. Yeah, into their multidimensional selves. They can travel astrally, and they have like an incredible template, but it's not human. Okay. Um yeah, it's all through the heart and vibration. Yeah. Yeah, they're bringing the whales. They bring so much. They're a part of, or maybe what they mainly do is to keep the Earth's heart in coherence. They're like the balancers of coherence. Yes, through the sound field. Yes, they heal the sound field. They hold that template of the earth, of the heart. Yeah. So, what was I saying about holding up the net of the royal bloodlines. Yeah, that's what they were seeded. That's why they came. Exactly. And now, where Earth is now, because of all the help that we got, from the higher dimensional souls into these royal templates, and even though the darkness, the turned consciousness, the reversed consciousness, the dying consciousness, this falling asleep consciousness that inflicts suffering, even though they tried to, because they got a hold in the dark night of the soul, the dark night of the earth, which was this 13,000 year cycle of the Kali Yuga. I think is 13,000 years, something around that. This Kali Yuga is where this earth went into its greatest split off, from its soul into its densest form, experienced itself at the densest, in the densest way than it ever has. I would venture to say that. Yes, because on the descension, when the great cycle is still descending, we dip deeper every time until the soul says, okay, this is as deep as I want to go. But the soul will actually go as deep as it can and then come back up, unless it falls and gets stuck, like in that why it's called prison planet, in that realm where it cannot go beyond the template of that planet, and it has to, and it gets caught, so to speak, in the loop, in a ascension, in a reincarnation cycle. But that is also from that soul's, now again we have the multidimensional soul on the higher level, on the collective level of that soul, because that soul is like is a fractal of greater soul, greater soul, greater soul groups. We know that. So on some level of consciousness of itself, it decided it wanted to go that deep into physicality. It decided that, exactly. And it would also decide if it falls so deep to, let's say, risk, or maybe it's not a risk at all. Maybe it's like, yep, I want to experience that. I want to be that long in this reincarnation cycle. That's really going to give me a lot of expansion. So at the end of that cycle, I'm going to be ready for ascension. That's the expansion that's coming. And how long, and who knows how long a soul went in there, like how much time it actually spent in the incarnation cycle. And of course they can all see, okay, if I incarnate now here, I'm going to take this loop, I'm on this time-space vantage point of the cycle, I may be stuck there for a while. So, but at a certain level, that is chosen, for a reason. That is chosen, and only because the soul was ready to do so. Yeah. There's never a higher part of ourselves that forces a lower part of ourselves to do something. This only happens through that split egoic mind within the 3D bodies, that we do that to each other, that we force each other. Yeah. And so now we're coming to the place in the cycle where the royal bloodlines, they serve their purpose. And now because that frequency that that they were holding, these royal bloodlines, right? And they probably also fell to a certain degree, maybe, but so why is it that now all DNA becomes noble? It is because the unlocking of that DNA, which is within us, we have within us the potential. Oops. Yeah. We have we have that whole potential of Remember who was like the first two, the founders, the founder couples, you know, remember I was talking about that in the beginning? That DNA is within us. Maybe not, you know, every single human being on the planet from the same founder couple. Maybe there are 12. You know, isn't it the 12 tribes of Israel? Isn't it, you know, they talk about that. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. And also there are, but it's also said 22 founder races. I hear this also, 22 founder races. So maybe this has to do with at different times of Earth. Maybe during the time of the 12 tribes of Israel, that was already not on first, second, or, you know, that was not first Earth. Maybe Earth had a cycle before that where it was seeded. I'm pretty sure it was. Or maybe it's just looking at a different angle using different language. I just think it's interesting that they say 22 founder races when the increments after, you know, after when we become more and more aware of our soul on a deeper level, more aware of soul, that's ourselves through the heart, that is not thinking of memory, that is not regurgitating whatever was recorded in the conditioned mind, you know, what it's just, it's using the mind like this, you know, the whole time I'm just talking, it as it comes. It's using the mind, but where does it all come from? It comes through, you know, I'm connecting into, it's hard to put this into words, but this is all like downloads, this is all like intuition, it's like coming through as it comes through. There's that spark of inspiration. I see something, dots connect, and then it starts rolling when I focus on it, when I look at it, and then questions are coming in, and so, oh, I can't see further than that, I have a question, and then pretty soon those dots connect to, if I don't, you know, fixate on it and say, oh, I don't know, I gotta let it go, and then the dots connect and the picture can be seen. So those sound waves, exactly those waves that are coming in, those high frequential waves, they unlock our DNA, you know, at the level when that DNA was still, because it wasn't, you know, even though there's a cataclysm, it never completely, it cannot wipe out the human template, you know, the first humans, the first human DNA. It didn't wipe them out. So all the DNA that we have as humans goes all the way back to the very beginnings, where those were the founder races and that consciousness. And so what is coming back now? That is that the earth is moving in a part in space where that is filled with photons through the photon belt, and where these certain high vibrational energies, waves, clouds that are made out of waves. I would say it's more like a wave, like you send a wave, like you send a signal, like say a radio signal or something. And it's a code, it's a energy, it's a consciousness. Yeah. And it's also light. And the frequency is at a certain dimension. But it hits the earth. So that means it must be a frequency that is going to, where the earth is sharing, interfacing with. So it receives that, and this light that comes in, even though we can't see it, we can feel it. Or if we don't feel it, it's still happening. That it, just like in cymatics, it has that effect of, again, the sound unlocking, like I said before, with the founder races, the sound unlocking the code in the DNA, that they call the ascension codes. And that is, that ascension code was unlocked the first time, like with the royal bloodlines, right? That the first time someone, not someone, but that bloodline, someone ascended. Yeah. That now the codes are coming so that all of our DNA is unlocked in order to ascend. Yes. And now it happens naturally because the planet is ascending. It's not like in the time of Jesus where only he was the one ascending while the whole planet was probably still going further into density. It was a really hard feat. Yeah. Now it's happening just like the flowers in the spring are beginning to bloom. And that's why it's also called the Great Purge and the Great Harvest. And the purge is meant for everything that gets purged is what isn't ready to ascend, and those are so either those beings that are still wanting to continue in inverted 3D or continue in 3D. Yes, and 4D is not a place to continue, it is a transitional place. So either those in 4D reincarnate one last time, so then they're like the next wave of ascension, or if because this cycle is going on for a while, and it's not like Earth is stopping. But once Earth has reached the next level, the next dimension, which is the fifth dimension, through traversing through the fourth dimension, then okay, there's still going to be a fourth dimension for a while. Exactly. So it's either those, that's what is being purged, is those that are still into the inverted, those that are still running on the reverse, and either they get purged onto a planet, a different planet, and then that's part of a greater story. Or there's also part of the purge, they're like you can't call them life forms anymore, they just dissolve. It's more like chimeras, like a shadow of themselves. These are just shadows. They're not really light beings. And these shadows, however, that where the light is just being sucked out of, like the black holes in the aura is being sucked out of, that just dissolves. So, and it is anyways, those holes, they close. Where the energy gets lost, where it goes into that infinite density, right? It just, the spin stops in that opposite direction, and it's like it never was. It just disappears. It's like those dimensions, they just disappear, that lowest of low, and then either there's a shuttle service to wherever the platform is that these souls are ready, that is the next life in front of them, on which dimension that's going to be. There's some kind of a shuttle service to those souls that are stuck in the fourth dimension. We have all these helpers on Earth, all these shamans, grid workers that liberate them, that just like in the movie What Dreams May Come, where we remind them of the light. Either that, or they get also they dissolve because the light is coming in. And either they dissolve, or they find the light, and then they can move to a place where they can heal, and then eventually incarnate somewhere else. So, and then there will be some that will reincarnate back on Earth, where they can then join the ascension cycle. And yeah, that fourth dimension is going away. There's not, because Earth is going to be like completely in the fifth without any lower dimensions. And every the royal DNA, every other body on Earth is ascending without having to do anything. The difference is only that on the way there, if that's what is meant to be for us, if that's the maturity of our soul, if that's what our soul wants, and if that's what also the plan was of the soul, because otherwise it's not what you want, and it's not, yeah, it has nothing to do with, oh, I didn't do enough yogic practice or whatever, I didn't do enough spiritual practice, so I'm not going to catch that wave and I'm going to be left behind. That story, that's all a part of the fear program. That's a distortion. That's also a distortion story. That's also on a three-dimensional, or maybe lower fourth dimension. It doesn't see the picture from broad enough scope to, it's still fear interwoven into that story, and